Manipulation isn't just a skill, it's a weapon. And those who master it, they shape the world around them. Whether you realize it or not, you're being influenced every single day, subtly, strategically, sometimes without even a clue. But what if you could turn the tables? Today, I'll expose the secrets behind psychological manipulation so you can recognize it, counter it, or even use it yourself. By the time we're done, you'll be shocked at just how often these tactics have been used against you. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Let's begin. 1. Reality distortion, gaslighting. Picture this. You're certain about something, absolutely sure. Then suddenly, someone makes you question everything. Did it really happen that way? Were you overreacting? Maybe you just misunderstood. This is the art of warping reality, a technique so subtle yet so powerful that you begin to doubt your own mind. The manipulator skillfully bends situations, rewriting the past, reshaping conversations until their version of events seems more believable than yours. Before you even realize it, you start trusting their words over your own instincts. Ever walked away from an argument feeling like you were the villain, even though you know you weren't? That's reality distortion in action. Be careful. This trick seeps into daily life, and if you're not aware of it, you'll find yourself questioning your own truth. 2. The rebel's trap, reverse psychology. This one? It's almost too simple because it exploits something hardwired into all of us, the urge to defy expectations. Imagine I insist that you drink soda all day, every day, morning, noon, and night. No water, just endless carbonation. You'd probably recoil at the thought and decide, no way, I need to cut back. That's reverse psychology at work. Instead of forcing you to do something, the manipulator nudges you to reject the suggestion, knowing full well you'll do the opposite. It's a mind trick so effective that even the most independent thinkers fall for it. Ever noticed how, the moment someone tells you, you can't do that, a fire ignites inside you to prove them wrong? That's the rebel's trap. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. 3. The illusion of choice. This one is particularly deceptive because it makes you think you're in control, when, in reality, your options are already rigged. The trick is simple. Limit the choices in a way that nudges the person toward a predetermined outcome. Let's say I give you 2 options. Either hit the books or take on the lovely task of scrubbing the floors. Naturally, you'd pick the lesser evil, studying. And just like that, I've guided you exactly where I wanted, without any resistance. It's a psychological shortcut that makes the person feel they've made the decision on their own, when, in truth, the strings were pulled from the very start. The weight of guilt is a powerful lever. It lowers defenses and makes people more willing to comply. The manipulator doesn't demand, threaten, or force. They simply remind you of what you did, or rather, what they want you to feel bad about. Ever heard phrases like, "That really wasn't fair of you," or "You should apologize for what you did"? These aren't just statements. They're emotional traps. Once guilt takes root, it becomes easier for the manipulator to steer you in their desired direction. You'll agree, give in, or make amends, not because you actually should, but because they've made you believe you owe them something. The pressure sale, manipulative negotiation. Ever walked into a store and the salesperson drops a line like, "This is the deal of a lifetime. You won't find a better offer anywhere"? It's all part of the game. Manipulative negotiators use urgency, exaggeration, and pressure tactics to rush you into making a decision. They won't give you time to think, compare, or reflect. The goal? To make you feel like this is your only chance. So you act impulsively. The reality? The deal isn't half as great as they made it seem. 6. Turning molehills into mountains. Some manipulators don't need logic or persuasion. Instead, they blow minor issues way out of proportion to create panic, urgency, or emotional distress. You've probably seen it in arguments where someone takes a tiny mistake and spins it into an earth-shattering betrayal. Suddenly, what started as a small misunderstanding becomes a huge offense. Why? Because by escalating the issue, the manipulator shifts control, forcing you to react, defend yourself, or back down completely. It's a psychological fog of war, and if you don't recognize it, you'll find yourself fighting battles that never even needed to happen. 7. The pressure play. Some manipulators thrive on urgency. They amplify minor issues, turning them into seemingly catastrophic problems. Why? Because when you're overwhelmed, you don't think, you react. And that's exactly what they want. By making a situation appear dire, they corner you into making impulsive decisions. No time to weigh the options, no room for logic, just pure pressure. And once you're in that state, they can steer you wherever they please. 8. The sweet trap. Love bombing. At first, it feels incredible. Constant attention, endless compliments, and a flood of affection. It's intoxicating, like being placed on a pedestal. But what happens when that pedestal becomes a cage? Once they've secured your trust, the dynamic shifts. Now, that affection comes with strings attached. You're made to feel guilty if you don't return their energy, if you don't comply with their wishes. It's kindness turned into currency, a tool to control you, all under the guise of love. 9. The silent punishment. Few things are more unsettling than being ignored. The silent treatment isn't just avoidance, it's a power move. By refusing to communicate, they create a storm of doubt, anxiety, and insecurity in your mind. The goal? To make you chase after them, to force you into apologizing, fixing, or bending, even when you've done nothing wrong. It's psychological warfare at its finest, where silence speaks louder than words. 10. The third-party trick, triangulation. Some manipulators don't fight alone, they recruit. Instead of engaging in direct conflict, they bring in a third party to tip the scales in their favor. Ever heard someone say, "Even so-and-so agrees with me"? That's not just a statement, it's a setup. The more outnumbered you feel, the more likely you are to question yourself. And once doubt creeps in, they've already won. 11. The sugar-coated scheme, strategic flattery. Flattery seems harmless. Who doesn't enjoy a compliment? But when praise is used strategically, it becomes a tool for persuasion. They'll overdo it, making you feel valued, admired, even special. And once you're basking in that glow, they slide in a request, a favor, a subtle push toward their agenda. And because they made you feel good, you won't even think to resist. 12. The scarcity illusion. Ever seen phrases like limited offer or only a few left in stock? That's not just marketing. It's psychology at work. By making something seem rare, they create urgency, and urgency clouds judgment. You rush to act, fearing you'll miss out, only to realize later that the urgency was manufactured all along. 13. Emotional blackmail. This is where manipulation hits deepest. When your own emotions are turned against you, they'll make you feel selfish for setting boundaries, guilty for saying no, responsible for their happiness. And before you know it, you're doing things not because you want to, but because you're afraid of how they'll react if you don't. It's not persuasion. It's not negotiation. It's control disguised as obligation. 13. Guilt as a weapon. Manipulators have a way of twisting emotions to get what they want. They'll make you feel like you owe them, like your love or loyalty should come at a cost. You'll hear things like, "If you really cared about me, you wouldn't even hesitate," or, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." It's not about love, nor about fairness. It's about control, making sure you act out of fear rather than your own free will. 14. The mask of concern. This one's tricky because it looks like kindness. They'll claim they're just looking out for you, that they only want what's best. But their real goal, to influence your choices without making it obvious. They'll say things like, "I'm only telling you this because I care." But behind that concern is a subtle attempt to steer you in their direction. It's not advice. It's disguised manipulation. 15. The blame game. Ever called someone out, only to find yourself apologizing instead? That's blame shifting in action. Instead of taking responsibility, they'll flip the situation so fast that suddenly you feel like the guilty one. They'll say, "I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't made me," or "You pushed me into this." Before you even process it, the tables have turned, and you're the one left questioning yourself. 16. The perpetual victim. Some people dodge accountability by playing the victim. Instead of addressing the problem, they make it about their own suffering. You'll hear things like, "No one ever understands me," or "Why is everyone always against me?" It's a distraction, designed to make you feel guilty instead of holding them accountable. And before you know it, you're offering comfort instead of demanding answers. 17. The reward of relief, negative reinforcement. Unlike positive reinforcement, which rewards good behavior, negative reinforcement manipulates you by dangling relief as a prize. A boss might say, "I'll take some tasks off your plate," but only after you've agreed to work extra hours. It feels like a favor, but it's really just another way to get more out of you, by making you earn your peace. 18. The backhanded attack, passive aggression. Instead of addressing issues head-on, some people prefer to hide their hostility in sarcasm, veiled insults, or silent sabotage. They'll drop a line like, "Oh, don't mind me, you obviously know better," when they mean the exact opposite. It's an attack disguised as a joke, making it hard to call them out without looking overly sensitive. 18. Subtle attacks. Some people criticize in a way that feels like a puzzle. You're not sure if they're trying to help or hurt. Their words are laced with just enough ambiguity to keep you second-guessing their true intent. By the time you figure out what's happening, the damage is already done. 19. Withholding love as a weapon. This is one of the most potent emotional manipulations, threatening to withdraw affection, attention, or approval to make you comply. The fear of being abandoned or rejected is powerful, and manipulators use it to their advantage. It forces you to bend to their will just to keep the connection intact. 20. The illusion of promises. Some people string you along with empty commitments, making you believe that something valuable is just around the corner. Maybe it's a raise, a promotion, or some long-awaited reward. But it never materializes. There's always a reason, always an excuse. And yet, they keep you hoping, working harder, while they continue to benefit. 21st. Cutting you off control often starts with isolation. Manipulators don't want outside influences interfering, so they chip away at your support system, one relationship at a time. They'll plant doubts, saying things like, "Those people don't really care about you," or "Why do you need anyone else when you have me?" Their goal? To make you dependent on them alone. 22. Fear as a tool. Some people rule through fear, exaggerating dangers and worst-case scenarios to steer your decisions. If you don't do this, everything will fall apart. Everyone else is doing it. If you don't, you'll regret it. These scare tactics create anxiety, making you feel like you have no choice but to follow their lead. 23. Selling you a future that never comes. Future faking is all about painting an enticing picture of what could be. If only you stay, if only you comply. They'll speak of big dreams, amazing opportunities, or a perfect life together. But the promises are never fulfilled. It's a trick to keep you invested in something they have no real intention of delivering. 24. The silent wall. Some people avoid accountability by shutting down completely. Instead of addressing an issue, they'll ignore you, refuse to engage, or brush you off with, "I don't want to talk about this right now." This leaves you frustrated, unheard, and desperate for resolution. The more you push, the more unreasonable you seem, while they remain comfortably in control. 25. The third-party tactic. Triangulation is when someone brings a third person into the equation to create jealousy, competition, or insecurity. This is common in relationships, flirting with someone else just enough to make you question your worth. It's a way of keeping you on edge, making sure you feel replaceable, and, ultimately, keeping you under their control. 25. The comparison trap. One of the most insidious ways people manipulate is by constantly measuring you against someone else. They'll drop comments like, "Why can't you be more like them? Oh," or "They'd never act this way." The goal? To make you feel small, inadequate, always striving for approval that remains just out of reach. These comparisons are rarely fair, but they work by keeping you in a constant state of self-doubt. 26. The no-win situation. A double bind is a psychological trap where no matter what you choose, you're in the wrong. It's when someone complains, "You never spend time with me." But the moment you do, they sigh, "Don't you have anything better to do?" No matter which path you take, the outcome is the same: frustration, guilt, and the sinking feeling that you'll never get it right. 27. The shifting finish line. Ever feel like no matter how much you do, it's never enough? That's because some people constantly move the goalposts. Today, they set one expectation. Tomorrow, it's something else entirely. You might think you finally met their standards, but just when you're about to take a breath, they push the bar even higher. The cycle never ends, because the whole point is to keep you chasing approval you'll never receive. 28. Cutting off criticism before it starts. Some people defend themselves before they're even accused. They'll say things like, "I already know what you're thinking, and it's not true," or "You're going to blame me, but this isn't my fault." This preemptive defense is designed to silence you before you even get a chance to speak, making you second-guess whether you have the right to bring up an issue at all. 29. Playing dumb to avoid accountability. It's a classic move. Pretend not to understand, and maybe the problem will go away. You explain something clearly, yet they shrug and say, "I don't get it." You call them out on something obvious, and they blink innocently. I had no idea I was supposed to do that. This act of cluelessness isn't about ignorance. It's a deliberate attempt to wear you down, frustrate you, and make you abandon the argument altogether. 30. The disappearing act. At first, they offer something exciting, an opportunity, a favor, a promise that seems too good to pass up. But the moment you commit, things change. The deal shifts, the terms are rewritten, or the reward suddenly vanishes. What you thought you were agreeing to was never real in the first place. It was just a trick to get you hooked. 30. The switcheroo. At first, it seems like a dream deal, an amazing opportunity, an offer too good to resist. But once you're locked in, the terms quietly shift. Maybe you landed a job with an incredible salary, only to find out later that the pay is slashed or the workload doubled. By the time you realize what's happened, you're already in too deep, making it much harder to walk away without serious consequences. 31. Shrinking your feelings. Ever opened up about something that bothered you, only to be met with, "You're just being dramatic," or "It's not that serious"? This is a deliberate move to make you question yourself. By dismissing your concerns as overreactions, they chip away at your confidence, leaving you wondering if you're the problem when, in reality, your feelings were valid all along. 32. The helpless act. Some people have mastered the art of looking completely incapable. They throw up their hands and say, "I just don't know how to do this," or "I'm terrible at this kind of thing," all in hopes that you'll swoop in and handle it for them. It's not that they can't do it, they just don't want to. And by playing clueless, they ensure someone else will take on their responsibilities. 33rd. Drowning. You in details. Sometimes confusion is the goal. A manipulator might throw a mountain of information at you, pages of unnecessary facts, endless explanations, or unrelated statistics, until you can't tell what's important anymore. Hidden beneath the avalanche of details is their real intention, slipped in so smoothly that you don't even notice what they just got you to agree to. 34. The guilt card. Some people weaponize their past struggles like a shield. They remind you constantly about how hard their life has been, how much pain they've endured, all to ensure that you hesitate before holding them accountable. If you push back, they'll act wounded, making you feel like the villain for expecting basic respect or fairness. Their struggles may be real, but they're also a convenient way to dodge responsibility. 35. Selective memory loss. Nothing gets someone out of trouble faster than forgetting inconvenient promises. You remind them about something they swore to do, and suddenly it's news to them. "Oh, I totally forgot," or "That must have slipped my mind." It's not an accident. It's an easy way to avoid commitments while still pretending it was just an innocent mistake. 36. Half-truths, full lies. A manipulator doesn't always need to lie outright. Sometimes they just leave out the key details. They tell you just enough to sound truthful while carefully avoiding the parts that would change everything. The result? You think you have the full story, when in reality you're only seeing what they want you to see. Some people appear open and transparent, but in reality they only share selective truths. They carefully leave out critical details that would shift your understanding, creating an illusion of honesty while quietly shaping the story in their favor. Then there's the hero complex. a strategy where someone swoops in to fix a disaster they secretly caused in the first place. They create the chaos behind the scenes, then position themselves as the savior when they resolve it. This carefully orchestrated performance makes them seem indispensable, keeping you dependent on their help. Another common tactic? Weaponizing silence. The cold shoulder isn't just about ignoring someone. It's a calculated move designed to make you uneasy, anxious, and desperate to restore communication. The longer they refuse to engage, the more you start questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong, and bending over backward to earn back their attention. Some manipulators also love to paint the world in extremes, forcing you into impossible choices. They frame everything as black and white. Either you're on my side or you're against me. No room for nuance, no space for compromise. If you hesitate or disagree, they make you feel guilty, as if not complying means you don't care at all. These are just a handful of the psychological tactics people use every day, at home, at work, and even in casual conversations. Recognizing them is the first step to breaking free from their influence. The point isn't to manipulate others, but to avoid being someone else's pawn. If this breakdown opened your eyes, there's already a video up on deception through flattery and strategic cluelessness. Make sure you check it out before you fall for these tricks yourself. And if you found this helpful, hit that like button and drop a comment. Have you ever encountered any of these tactics firsthand? Let's talk about it. And of course, if you want to sharpen your understanding of psychology, self-improvement, and the art of influence, go ahead and subscribe.